And a good victory Tuesday morning, Birds fans. Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. You got McMullen still in Kansas City, where the sun is shining brightly. I thought it'd be overcast and dank in Kansas City after the result of last night's game, but it looks like the sun's up there. Not really here yet. The result of the game, very sunny here in Philadelphia, with the Eagles getting a W last night. Johnny Mac, tale of two halves. Because the Kansas City Chiefs dominated the Philadelphia Eagles in the first half, and then the second half, the Eagles just flipped the script.
Yeah, does it sound familiar? It's exactly what happened in Super Bowl 57, except the opposite way. The Eagles dominated early, the Chiefs finished strong. So a little bit of yin and yang. I don't know if the full revenge is back, but certain Eagles fans, as the Eagles said all week, they weren't going to give their rings back if we won the game, but it was an important game from the standpoint. You could see it. If you go back to Sunday, Detroit wavered, but they won. The Cowboys played well. The San Francisco 49ers looked like world beaters. Everybody won. The Eagles had to keep winning, and they keep winning. Kansas City, same on the AFC side, and all of a sudden they're looking up at Baltimore for the number one seed because of one loss. So that's the importance of this game. And the Eagles being able to get it done, you know, people probably get tired of me saying it, but man, they just persevere and find ways to win. They're relentless. And once Andy Reid punted on 4th and 4 from the 39, and it turned into a touchback. Looked like Justin Watson. I haven't been able to watch the game again. Looks like he had an opportunity to down it, and obviously that was the goal. They have a very good punter, Tommy Townsend, who's an All-Pro. But boy, that was a bad decision.
Yep.
That was a bad decision. And right then I said, that's it, man. That sends a message to your side. Eagles are fired up. They go right down the field. I think it was a 7-play drive. You get Jalen Hurts changing the play at the line of scrimmage, hitting the deep ball to Devontae Smith, push, bang, you're in the lead. Essentially, game over. Although Marquez Valdez-Scantling had an opportunity, and that's just a terrible drop. I don't care what anybody says. That's a terrible drop, and that should have been, if not a touchdown, he might have been down because he was diving for it. He might have been down at the 1 or 2 yard line, and the Eagles would have been deep in it. But good win. Anytime you can beat a team like Kansas City on the road, that's a good win.
And another aspect of last night's win, which I thought at least was key for me, I'm not sure how the Eagles feel about it, because I had said this here on Birds 365 over the last couple of weeks. When you're going through a season, you're compiling your record, you're trying to get the best positioning that you can for the upcoming postseason. When you're a team like the Eagles, who are certainly talented enough and should be looking toward the postseason, you like to accomplish a bunch of things. You like to check boxes. Well, one box the Eagles hadn't checked this year was a come-from-behind win, where they were losing, where they had to rally as a group and come from double digits down. That's why I said when they're double digits down in the second half, then I'll say they've checked that box. They hadn't done it this year. Oh, they did it last night, down double digits in the second half, down double digits in the fourth quarter. To be able to come back and win that game was huge for them last night. And I don't think it was a segment you were on with us yesterday. I know it was a segment that you were on with me last week when I asked one of our guests, of these three things, we know the Eagles check all three of these boxes, but if you could break them down percentage-wise for me, talent, toughness, clutchness. The Eagles are all three. What would you say is the percentage breakdown? Well, I got to tell you, from last night's game, Johnny, the clutchness moves up a couple of percent for me because, as we've noted now a couple times, they were down. They were outplayed. They were handled in the first half. But when it got late in the game, when they needed to make plays in the second half, in the fourth quarter, the Devontae Smith pass and catch, there's a clutchness attached to that, to be able to do that in the biggest moment as the clock is running down. This team is just flat out clutch, J-Mac.
Yeah, they are. I mean, and they have been. I mean, I think that stems from the quarterback. They have a very quiet, calm confidence about them, even when they're not playing well. They think they're going to win, which is an underrated thing. It's an intangible, so nobody can put a number on it. But they don't panic. Um, and you mentioned, yeah, the 10 points in the second half. They were down 11 in Washington. No quarterback has played better one behind than Jalen Hurts. Now they don't do it a lot, which is a good thing, because you don't want to, live on that. We've seen that with teams in the past, and it usually regresses to the mean. So when they have been able to do it, they do it. And again, we're week one of the 2022 season, so now we're at week 11, going into week 12. Every single week, best record or tied for best record. That will continue again for at least a couple more
They
weeks.
got guaranteed 2 weeks because they're up by one. They get, even if they lose 2 in a row, they can't lose it.
So, I mean, it's pretty impressive to watch. And when they beat teams like Kansas City, I guess it means a little bit more from the outside perspective. Certainly the fan base, national media, things like that. I don't think it means that to them. They already know it, but they just they just find ways to win. That's a trait. That's I always go back to Danny Green. Winning is a habit. Winning is a habit. They have a habit of winning. They do. Um, and teams find themselves in that kind of deficit and that kind of environment and that kind of weather. It rained the entire game. It wasn't supposed to, but it kept raining. Um, and they never waver. And that's you can't even get the feeling of I picked them to win the game. I thought it would be low scoring, so I wasn't perfect from that perspective. I think I said 23-16, pretty close.
Pretty close, John.
Yeah, they're just amazing in their ability to beat you in different ways. Because yesterday wasn't the offense, and the defense wasn't good in the first half, and all of a sudden the defense clamps down in the second half. And they take advantage of those mistakes. Maybe Andy Reid's not the first guy to lay up and make a bad decision in the modern game, but they take advantage of that kind of stuff. And it's like, oof, maybe you can get away with that against somebody else, but you're not going to get away with that with the Eagles. And like I said, that particular decision, and that just shows you because that's one of the greatest coaches of all time. I don't think anybody can debate that any longer. But that type of decision, that sends a message to both teams. That sends a message to your team too. And we're trying to play conservative because we probably are lucky to be ahead of this team. And then bang, it turns on a dime. Now Kansas City was able to persevere because Patrick Mahomes is a great player, and nobody's going to say anything differently. And again, if MVS makes a simple catch, they probably win the game. So I don't think the Eagles played well by any stretch of the imagination. And when you don't play well, the margin of error, it decreases. So, and that's what it was. The margin of error was a ball bouncing off the hands of MVS, but that's not the first time that's happened. Green Bay fans can tell you that.
Talent, toughness, clutch. You add luck into it. That's how you win football games because they got a little lucky that Marcus Valdez-Scantling did drop that football. When you have all three of those things going your way, and the Eagles did last night, you find a way to win against one of the best teams in the National Football League, the defending Super Bowl champions, in their house against the coach who just doesn't lose after a bye and has never lost to the team that he formerly coached. They did away with a bunch of demons last night, John, because of talent, toughness, clutchness, and a little luck involved on the Marcus Valdez-Scantling drop. You take it. One thing we do have to note about the Eagles, that despite their 9-1 record, they're 9-1 despite this fact, they haven't been a turnover-led team. In years gone by, certainly last year when they go to Super Bowl and lose, they were always on the plus side of the turnovers. They haven't gotten a ton of them this year. They haven't gotten interceptions. They haven't forced fumbles. They've been on the downside. Jalen's thrown a couple of picks, and he threw another one last night. Don't think it was his fault, but he did throw another one last night. Those two defensive turnovers in the red zone, the Byard interception and the Roby punch-out, both were huge last night and ended up with the Eagles +1. That's if they can keep that aspect of their game going, they're certainly going to be going back to the playoffs. They're probably going to be the number 1 seed. It was nice to see the Eagles on the plus side of the turnover ratio last night.
Yeah, and it was Byard and Roby. So, it was, the two newcomers, the two guys are supposed to settle things down in the secondary. And, with Byard, he had a really good game. He had a reputation of having some good games against Travis Kelce when he was in Tennessee, or at least as good a games as he can have. And he looked like he baited Patrick Mahomes on that throw from overhead. He had a beat on that from the moment it left Mahomes' hands. So that was a really impressive play live. And then Roby stripping the football from Travis Kelce. That's big. And Kelce was really upset, pounding the turf. He knew the kind of mistake that was. But, I was talking about it leading up. Not that they have what they were, not that Byard's an all-pro any longer, not that Roby's a top-tier cornerback any longer, but they know how to play. They did, and those are two examples. Veteran savvy plays. In the case of Byard, baiting the best quarterback in football. In the case of Roby, not giving up on a play at the very last minute. Kelce's thinking he's got a big first down, and bang, punches the ball out. That's the kind of stuff, not that Sidney Brown or Eli Ricks don't have talent. That's the kind of stuff that's not going to happen with them. And maybe it will down the road, but not right now. And from those two particular players, that's even bigger than just the turnovers in general.
They did a great video breakdown of the Kelce fumble on NBC Sports Philly last night after the game. They had him bracketed. He made the catch, but they had 3 tacklers around him, 1 on each side and Roby right in front of him. And George was breaking down the video. He said, this is why Roby can make this type of play, because he knows if he misses, you take a punch at the ball, you miss at a guy like Travis Kelce, he's going to go by you, and he may even get into the end zone from where he was positioned on the field. But he knew he had help from his teammates, so he said, I'm going to try and make a play here. And that's exactly what he did by punching the football out. So give Roby credit for it, but his teammates were in position to help him make that play. I got a Roby question for you, because he was the guy who got beat on the Marquez Valdez-Scantling thing. You wipe your brow and go, okay, get back to the line of scrimmage. He did not play the entire game. Last night, Bradbury played the entire game. Slate played every single snap. Blankenship was out there for every single rep. Byard was out there for every single play. They did rotate Brown and Ricks in again last night, with Roby playing, I think, just slightly over 50% of the snaps. Just physically not ready, still coming back from that knee. I thought with him coming back and being, as you just stated, just the knowledge of knowing how to play the position being that much more than the other guys they've run out there. Wonder why he didn't play as many snaps as the other guys in the secondary.
Well, the snaps in the slot, I think you're right. He's not ready to play an entire game yet. Remember, he didn't have training camp, then he misses 3 games, didn't have a preseason. So he played 44 snaps, 56%. They had 79 total. And then Ricks was at trying to look for Eli.
Brown played more than Eli, but Eli got snaps too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that I was getting the Brown. They rolled out, which is a good thing. A big nickel look, a 3 safety look. So that was a new New wrinkle from Sean Desai. We talk about his new wrinkles and be willing to do certain things, which I think is good. Rick's was at 13, so those were the slot snaps. Sydney was playing safety, and they would bring Bayer down into essentially the second linebacker position, which is what a lot of teams are doing. And obviously, Reed Blankenship is the other safety. A lot of teams around the NFL are doing that now. Whether you want to call it big nickel, whether you want to call it dime, putting all these D-backs on the field, the Eagles probably didn't feel comfortable with that kind of look. So when we talk about losing Nakobe Dean, how are they going to handle that? Well, part of it is they unveiled this big nickel on mostly obvious passing downs with Sidney Brown and Reed playing safety and Kevin Byard playing essentially a glorified linebacker. So they did it a couple different ways, but yeah, I think Roby's also he's still on a pitch count, but he played quite a bit and he played effectively. And they want to, and by the way, they're trying to serve two masters as well. They want to continue to develop, obviously, Sidney Brown and Eli Ricks. And they saw some good things from those two particular players. But
last night?
No, in general.
Okay. Yeah.
But
because I thought they both, well, no. Rick's big problem, he took a bad penalty. And it was a righteous penalty. Got called it a
yeah. And I think as the stakes get higher, the numbers will probably go more heavy Roby as long as he stays healthy. But Sidney's a player that I think you'll still see that big nickel because he's quite the athlete, and if it starts to click. He can help them.
Yeah, it's got to start to click because he got beat a couple of times last night too. When they were in, neither Ricks nor Brown made any big plays. So I do appreciate the fact that they're trying to get both of those guys up to speed because they're rookies and they could be here for years and they could be major contributors for the Eagles. And you do want to not only take a look at the small picture, but the big picture as well. Yeah, I'd narrow focus a little bit more on the small picture than the big picture at this stage when you're 9-1 and it's in the midst of a Super Bowl run. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We're hoping to hear from our guy, Jeff Kerr. You know, he usually joins us Monday after the Eagle game, early spot. Well, the Eagles didn't play till last night. So Jeff Kerr is supposed to join us. Coming up next, we got plenty to continue to break down on the Eagles win over the Chiefs here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game